Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take the sources you send us and really unpack them to get to the core ideas. Today, we're diving into something pretty intense. It's excerpts from an article called The Gold Rush of Deportation, America's Latest Boondoggle. And the subtitle really jumps out. How the Deportation Industrial Complex became a modern-day WPA.
Right, the WPA comparison, the Works Progress Administration from the Depression era, that immediately signals this is about more than just, immigration policy as we usually think of it. It's framing it as a massive jobs program.
Exactly. So our mission here is to explore the source's main claim, that this idea of mass deportations, once maybe a theoretical scenario, is now, quote, in full motion. We'll look at the mechanisms the author describes, the economic side, which is fascinating, and the psychological tactics mentioned, really trying to help you understand what this observer claims is happening and why.
And what's striking, I think, is how the author presents it. It's not quite a prediction, more like recognizing current trends, observing them almost clinically detached. They set the scene very specifically, more than 180 days into a second Trump term.
Ah, right.
And according to the source, this follows a landslide win electoral college, popular vote, GOP majorities in Congress.
So the context is a strong mandate.
Exactly. With the 2026 midterms on the horizon, the pressure is on to deliver fast. And that, the author says, pushes the whole enforcement system into, quote, hyperdrive.
Okay, hyperdrive. Let's unpack what that looks like on the ground, according to this article. It starts with just the sheer numbers. The document claims over 1 million undocumented immigrants have self-deported since Inauguration Day.
1 million? That's, well, if accurate, that's a staggering figure.
Staggering. And that's not even the whole picture, is it?
No, that's just the self-deportations. The article then talks about really aggressive enforcement, thousands more detained, processed, swept up in raids, and it specifically calls out sanctuary cities, LA, Chicago, New York. So a broad effort.
Right. So you have this big federal push. How does the article say society is actually reacting? Is it mass acceptance, mass resistance, or something messier?
It sounds pretty messy. The author mentions weekly protests, and civil rights groups trying to get injunctions.
Okay.
And you see state governors making resistant noises in press releases.
Okay.
But the article claims they're also quietly coordinating with federal agencies behind the scenes, so a kind of public face versus private reality. And this leads into something the author flags as really crucial.
What's that?
How the word immigrant itself is being politically weaponized. The claim is it's broadened so much. It sort of erases the lines between, say, naturalized citizens, people here on visas, and those who entered illegally.
Blurring the lines.
Creates a fuzzy target, is the argument.
And that fuzziness leads to this quote you highlighted earlier. It's quite powerful. The author writes, "The public hears cries of injustice against people who are not even criminals. But the rebuttal is, ingrained in the national psyche, the crime is presence. The original sin is undocumentedness."
That's great. Yeah. The crime is presence.
It really makes you stop and think about how that core concept, just being here, is being framed, doesn't it?
It does. And the author is careful to point out this isn't really about new laws being passed.
Right.
It's about laws already on the books, statutory mandates, some for 50 years, apparently.
50 years?
Yeah. But now being enforced with totally new volume, velocity, and visibility. It's an escalation, not invention.
Volume, velocity, visibility.
Okay.
And building on that scale, the article talks about reopening old detention sites, places dormant for decades.
That's right. Suggests a massive build-out of capacity needed for this velocity.
And then there's the mention of Alcatraz.
Yes, credible reports, the author says, about reactivating Alcatraz Island, not just symbolic, but as an operational holding center.
Wow. Alcatraz.
And the critics, the source notes, are already calling it things like alligator Alcatraz or even alligator Auschwitz.
It's incredibly strong language. Alligator Auschwitz.
It is. Whether that's rhetoric or, a warning, the stated goal, according to the source, is clear. Deterrence through scale and spectacle.
Scale and spectacle. Okay, and this next point is where the author really throws a curveball, I think. Challenging maybe what people assume is driving all this.
You mean the economic angle?
Exactly. The author argues this whole thing isn't primarily ideological or even just law enforcement. It's economic. The Deportation Industrial Complex is presented as a jobs program.
Yeah, that's the core twist, isn't it? It's not just policy, it's profit and jobs, turning this massive social issue into an economic engine.
So how does that work, according to the article? What kind of jobs are we talking about?
Well, it goes way beyond just IC agents. The author details it. For every one DHS or ICE officer on the front line, there are supposedly 10 support roles.
10. Like what?
Drivers, detention officers, translators, people doing biometrics, housing contractors, cooks, data entry, mental health providers, compliance auditors. It's a whole ecosystem.
A federally funded ecosystem.
Precisely.
And who's getting these jobs? Where is this happening?
The source points to, quote, red towns, long forgotten by federal investment. These places are apparently seeing new detention hubs built, and the jobs are going to veterans, laid-off miners, workers from closed factories. It's described as a direct injection of federal cash and work into specific communities.
Okay, but there's that old argument, isn't there, that Americans don't want those jobs. How does the source address that?
It tackles it head-on. The author argues that for the working class, especially the, quote, Magi base, it wasn't that they didn't want the work itself. They saw the existing low-wage jobs, often filled by immigrants, as inaccessible, underpaid, under the table, and cornered off by a labor economy, rigged by open border leniency and corporate exploitation. That's the claim.
So the argument is offer these new jobs with federal backing.
Right. Offer fair wages, federal protections, and moral justification, framing it as righteous work, and they will take them.
And righteous and lucrative, apparently. The money side sounds significant.
Yeah, the article gets into that too. Privatized security contractors, surveillance firms, many apparently with roots in post-9/11 Iraq and Afghanistan operations.
Right.
They're getting awarded these huge federal contracts. There's even a rumor mentioned of Blackwater-style operatives, private contractors making $1,000 per day.
$1,000 a day. Wow.
And the source is critical, mentioning minimal oversight, money potentially vanishing, likening it to, quote, Fallujah at home with matching incentives.
Fallujah at home. What's the implication there? Is it just about the money disappearing or something more militarized?
I think the author implies both. That kind of high-profit, low-accountability environment seen in wartime contracting. The source suggests it's being replicated here on U.S. soil, with maybe the same focus on force and profit over, say, efficient or humane enforcement.
Right. So there's the economics, the jobs, but then there's the psychological side you mentioned earlier.
Yes, and the author stresses this might be even more critical than the actual tactics on the ground. The idea is you can't physically deport everyone at this scale just through force. What you need is fear.
Not just regular fear.
No, mythic fear, the author calls it, like the boogeyman, or they use the analogies of the John Wick principle or the Baba Yaga effect.
The Baba Yaga effect, okay.
Basically, the idea of the threat becomes larger than life, a pervasive dread, almost legendary.
So the goal is ICE becomes the nightmare in the closet, not just a government agency with something more primal.
That seems to be the idea described. Break morale. Shift compliance away from just following rules on paper to a shiver in the national imagination.
And how does that connect back to the self-deportations?
Directly. The logic presented is, if the perceived threat of getting caught the reputation, the story is worse than going back home. Even if home means facing, cartel violence or famine.
Then leaving voluntarily starts to look like the rational choice.
Exactly. And the tools to cultivate this fear, according to the source, excessive cruelty, excessive visibility, and excessive rumor. It's about shaping perception, influencing who people think ICE is.
And the source connects this whole apparatus back to Trump's first term.
Yeah, it argues this is the connective tissue he promised, but maybe didn't fully deliver then. While other promises, like clean coal or factories returning, were slow, this deportation industrial complex offered something immediate, something scalable, patriotic, emotionally resonant.
A labor apparatus that employs people, enforces discipline, reassures a base.
And could be funded massively and run at full throttle right now.
While this is happening, the author also touches on the messaging war.
Right. Observing how mainstream media, by choosing words like migrants or immigrants instead of illegal, the author claims this merges distinct groups, undocumented crossers, green card holders, even fourth-generation citizens into a single moral blob.
Creating a different narrative through language choice.
That's the argument.
Right.
But the source concludes that part by saying the public, or at least a significant part of it, is no longer persuaded by that framing.
They're not buying it anymore.
The claim is that the base, the working poor, the disaffected, see something different. They see a government finally enforcing a long-broken contract. And, crucially, they see people being paid to enforce it.
Right. Getting paid to do it. So, after digging into all this, What does it really mean for you, the listener? This deep dive paints a pretty stark picture, doesn't it? A system the author sees driven by economics and psychology, not just law.
It does. In connecting it to the bigger picture, the source argues pretty forcefully that this complex isn't just theoretical anymore. It's, quote, happening, and it is popular. Whether it ultimately leads to, catastrophe or just mutates into permanent infrastructure, the author seems convinced it's already underway.
The final line from the excerpts we have is pretty definitive. The gold rush of deportation is not coming. It is here.
Which leaves us and you with a pretty significant question to chew on, doesn't it? If these economic forces, these psychological tactics the author describes, are truly at play like this, how could that reshape our basic understanding of things like citizenship, labor, national identity in the years ahead? What really stands out to you from all this?